But you know that my concept is that true atheism doesn't exist anyway. There can be Gnosticism, but true atheism, you'd have to be born, grow, and never have the concept of God ever introduced to you, and you can't live in any society in the world today and not have a God concept. To be truly atheistic, but in any case. All right, I'm back to Alexander Hislop. There can be no doubt then that the pagan festival of the winter solstice, in other words, Christmas, was held in honor of the birth of the Babylonian Messiah. There, he used the same word too. That's interesting that you pointed that out. The northern Europeans worshiped the same gods as the ancient Babylonians, but under the name of Odin, who was the equivalent of Sol or Baal. He was the sun god. The evergreen fir tree is sacred to Odin, and people decorated it during the festival of Saturnalia. Legend has it that Odin would bestow Yuletide gifts to those who approached the sacred fir tree on the Brumalia. So we have trees with gifts under them, which Odin used to bring. The giving of presents on December 25th happened long before Rome arbitrarily chose December 25th as the supposed birthday of Jesus. The stories about St. Nicholas being the origination of giving presents is merely a church spin to try to put a Christian face on what was a pagan custom done hundreds of years before Christ. We'll talk about St. Nicholas in a minute too. The tree even dates back to Baal worship in the Old Testament. Listen carefully to this. This is Jeremiah 10, 1 through 6. See if any of it strikes home now that you know that during Jeremiah's time there was a lot of tree worship going on. Jeremiah 10, 1 through 6. Hear ye the word of the Lord, as he speaks unto you, O house of Israel. Thus says the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vain. For one cuts down a tree in the forest, the work of the hands of a workman, with an axe. And they deck it with silver and gold, and they fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it does not move. They are upright as a palm tree, but they can't speak. And they must needs be carried around, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it in them to do good. For as much as there is none like unto thee, O Lord, thou art great, and thy name is great in might. So even in Jeremiah, the people were warned, don't drag trees in from the forest into your house and decorate it with gold and silver. Because it was already happening back in Jeremiah's time, is the point. In the Old Testament, we learn that the worshipers of Baal set up what were called groves. When we find the word in its singular form, grove, it most often is a translation of the word Asherah, which in the Hebrew is a decorated tree, which was considered an image to Ashtart or Ashtoreth, also called Ishtar. 2 Kings chapter 23 is a perfect example of God's hatred for the customs of the heathen. So what does the church do? Inculcate them. Sure, we'll just Christianize them. It'll be fine. The modern Christmas tree was likely born in the 8th century when St. Boniface was converting the Germanic tribes. The tribes worshipped oak trees, and they would decorate them for the winter solstice. St. Boniface cut down an enormous oak tree that was central to the worship of a particular tribe, but a fir tree grew there in its place. And the evergreen was offered as a symbol of Christianity, which the newly converted Germans began decorating for Christmas. And Prince Albert, who was German, introduced the Christmas tree to England after his marriage to Queen Victoria in 1840. German immigrants to Pennsylvania brought the Christmas tree with them to America, and that's how we got it. A guy named Tristram P. Coffin, in his book, The Book of Christmas Folklore, writes, most people have heard that the Christmas tree originates in the Tannenbaum and is some sort of vestige of Teutonic vegetation worship. However, the custom of using pine and other evergreen trees ceremonially was well established at the Roman Saturnalia and even earlier in Egypt. So the Christmas tree goes way back. It's not Christian. It's a sign of pagan worship to the sun god. Whether he's called Odin or whether he's called Tammuz, the Christmas tree is established as a form of worship for the sun god. Okay? Want to talk about Santa Claus?
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. Big, fat, jolly man who comes down your chimney and leaves you gifts, who has all these godlike qualities. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. So be good for goodness sake. Because Santa Claus is watching. He'll get you.
Well, be good because he'll bring you presents.
Be good because he'll bring you presents.
For goodness sake.
Absolutely. It's not for goodness sake. It's for stuff. Yeah.
Conscience and guilt and
Often it is assumed that our notions of Santa Claus came down to us because of a kindly saint who gave gifts to children. But traditions of a God who gave gifts under an evergreen tree far predate Saint Nicholas, who was the saint of Asia Minor, and it predates him by thousands of years. Among the Scandinavians, it was the god Odin, or Woden, who left special gifts during the Yuletide season under an evergreen tree, which was his sacred tree. So who is this Odin or Woden? He was the chief god of Norse mythology, and he was a fierce fighter who carried a spear as his special weapon, and he was renowned as a mighty hunter like Nimrod for his magical powers. Odin was another name for Nimrod, except that Odin could, catch this, fly. So he could bring gifts to all the children under his sacred fir tree. This is interesting. This next piece is written by a rabbi who was wise enough to look at the history and write about it. Rabbi, I hope I say this, Yeshaya Halkaiser. The rabbi writes, even Santa Claus, the most popular symbol of Christmas in the United States, has a pagan origin.
Thank you.
Have I been saying it?
Yeah.
Okay. Has a pagan origin. Says the World Book Encyclopedia, this is still the rabbi I'm quoting, some of Santa Claus's characteristics date back many centuries. For example, the belief that Santa enters the house through a chimney developed from an old Nordic legend. The Norse believed that the goddess Hertha appeared in the fireplace and brought good luck to the home. But the most significant symbolism in this myth is that children are taught through it that he has many characteristics that only God actually has, like omniscience, knowing all. He knows when you've been bad or good. Omnipresence, being able to cover the whole world with gift giving in one night, etc. Satan also wanted to take God's place and to be like God. Santa Claus, as I call this myth, is a substitute for God and for the supposed, quote, reason for the season. Santa Claus stands identified as none other than the original arch-apostate Nimrod. His attributes hark back to ancient pagan worship. When children are asked, what did Santa Claus bring you this year? It is merely a modern twist of an old satanic counterfeit pagan religion. The winter solstice occurs on December 25th, and Saturnalia was kept from December 17th to the 24th, and on December 25th, Brumalia was the celebration of the rebirth of the sun god. This is called Mithraism. It was a continuation of the Baal worship of ancient days. It was present in Egypt and back in ancient Babylon. December 25th is the birthday of Tammuz, the son of Semiramis, and the rebirth of Nimrod. The ancient legend is that a green tree sprang up on Brumalia, with the stump symbolizing Nimrod or Baal, and the green tree is Tammuz. This festival is nothing more than witchcraft institutionalized in the church today as Christmas, and it is Baal worship. All of that written by a rabbi observing Christians keeping Christmas, who just bothered to go back and do the work. The Legend of St. Nicholas by Dr. Paul E. Heaton. He writes, St. Nicholas, it is the Bishop Nicholas who is the patron saint of children. Patron means protector, defender, or father, or pater. Nicholas is from, now watch this, talking about St. Nicholas for a moment. By the way, what does the word saint mean? Sanctified. Exactly. In the Greek, it is hagios. It is the same Greek word that is translated holy. Saint, holy, set aside for God's own use. This saint was a 4th century bishop of Myra who was supposedly a benevolent man who gave gifts to children, according to his legend. His birthday is December 6th, which is still celebrated as the Feast of St. Nicholas. And it is said that the English of New York corrupted the Dutch celebration and made it part of their traditional Christmas. The word Christmas comes from the Christe Masse, which is the Christ Mass, also called the Feast of the Nativity. This all eventually led to the changing of the bishop's name to